On the week that Sonic the Hedgehog celebrates his 35th birthday, we go back to the days when Gotta Go Fast did not apply on Sega CD. So this Sonic thing that they put out on the Mega Drive Genesis thing turned out to be a pretty big hit for Sega, and they wanted a sequel. And they ended up with two. One from Sonic Team that would take advantage of that spiffy new Sega Mega CD add-on thing, and the other from the Sega Technical Institute for the Sega Genesis that would eventually be released first and get the prestigious number 2 slapped onto its title. And for good reason, because it's a great game. The other sequel to Sonic 1 would get the CD label slapped onto its title, hence Sonic CD, the Hedgehog CD for Sega CD CD, released in 1993 CD. Yeah, sounds about right. Sonic CD is one of those beloved titles in the series that didn't see much in terms of re-releases compared to other Sonic games on the vanilla Genesis. It saw Windows conversion a couple years later in 1996, and that version would later be included on the Sonic Gems collection for GameCube that would be released in 2005. And those would be my sole exposures to the game until 2011 when the remastered version of Sonic CD conceived by Christian Whitehead came along and gave Sonic CD not only a playable Tails, but also a proper motherfucking spin dash. And then that got delisted to make way for Sonic Origins, a compilation of the remastered classic titles including Sonic CD, which eventually got Knuckles and Amy Rose as playable characters, and that's the most current version of the game you could play unless you lucked out on the second Genesis mini console, which included the original Sega CD version of Sonic CD as part of its lineup. And lo and behold, that's the version we're playing today. Hence the beautiful HD quality footage that also features a rubbish backdrop on the sides. Well, you know what they say. You know what? Play the clip.
Even if it's not perfect, it's better than nothing. At least that's my opinion.
So Sonic CD has Sonic the Hedgehog on another one of his adventures. He sees a little planet in chains and he has to go save it from good old Eggman Robotonic, who has a counter to the Blue Blur in the form of his own Blue Blur known as Metal Sonic, who decides to be a dick and kidnap Amy Rose, who just happens to be there, while Sonic just stands there and lets it all happen. Good job, hero. Fun fact, did you know that in the original US Sonic CD manual, they refer to this character as Princess Sally? She of the Saturday morning cartoon that aired once upon a time on ABC, she who is not a hedgehog but rather a squirrel. Oh yeah, nobody can tell the difference here. Right, so where was I? Sonic CD is familiar 2D Sonic fare. You navigate these 8 zones, each divided up into 3 acts, collect rings, bash badniks, and reach the end goal. Reach the end of the stage with 50 rings or more, and you get a giant ring to hop onto that lets you play the special stage, of which you can attempt to claim the Time Stones rather than the usual Chaos Emeralds. There are 7 stones to collect in all, and these changes the future to a good one, because there's also time travel involved. And time travel plays a crucial part of Sonic CD because you'll need to travel back in time via passing one of these time posts and then running really, really fast enough that you'll propel yourself back in time, but if you mess up or slow down at any point, the time jump is prevented and you'll have to find another time post because these are things that you can use only once. While in the past, you'll need to seek out 2 key items in each stage. One is a hologram of Metal Sonic being a dick to all the animal critters. Blow this up to bring back all the frolicking animals in the stage. The more important item to seek out, however, is the enemy generator gimmick, the thing responsible for all them badniks. Kill this thing to clear all enemies from the current act and essentially make a good future. If the first 2 acts have good futures, then Act 3, which is a boss stage essentially, will be a good future and will look pretty and sound serene in its soundtrack. Otherwise, it's drab and dreadful. Much like real life. This is where the split in design mentality reveals itself in regards to the 2 follow-ups to Sonic the Hedgehog, whereas Sonic 2 placed a focus on speeding through stages and catered to that mentality for the most part, Sonic CD was more focused on exploration, spotty platforming, and gimmicky level designs. You do have some speedy segments in Sonic CD, but these serve more as a device to the time travel aspect of the game, which you need to make use of if you're going to find and destroy the generators in each stage. to ensure a good future. Sure, you can find these generators in the present form, but you can't actually touch them. The speedy segments exist for the express purpose of aiding in the time travel. In that regard, Sonic gains 2 new moves in his repertoire, both of which were largely exclusive to this game until recently. I've already made mention of Sonic CD's version of the Spin Dash, which I dubbed the Spin Flop because it's terrible. As a reminder, in Sonic 2 you ducked and mashed buttons to rev up that speed dash, let go of down, and then... It was fun and exciting and useful. Meanwhile, in Sonic CD, you ducked and press a button and you have to wait for this thing to rev up, which takes about a second or two. Let go of down before the dash is ready, and Sonic will just stand there like an asshole so that decades later, someone can do a Sonic CD video and insert a tour bus passing along the bottom of the screen while badly voicing a tour guide telling the onlookers to look at the asshole just standing there so they could all point and laugh.
And if you look to your left, you'll see an asshole just standing there. So let's point and laugh, everyone. Ha 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 ha.
For someone coming from Sonic games that had a proper spin dash, this was... No, this spin flop sucks. I barely use it, it feels weak, just rubbish. Now on the flip side is Sonic's other ability, the Super Peel Out, which can be executed by holding up on the D-pad, which will cause Sonic to build up speed to where his legs are forming a little figure 8, which is, that's kinda cute actually. Let go of up to run really fast, and then press down on the D-pad to roll up into ball form so that you don't get hurt running into an inconveniently placed obstacle or badnik. Now try to explain to me how either of these things is better than just... Yeah, there's no fucking contest there. Now, being fair here, the 2011 remaster does fix the spin flop slightly so that if you let go of down prematurely, you'll at least get some forward motion. But when you also have the option for... Why would you even give this the time of day? So Sonic CD is largely built on the bones of Sonic 1. You've got the old school checkpoint posts, you've got the old flowers, there's still very much that platformer mentality that didn't quite take advantage of your speedy gifts unless it involves time travel, and of course there's the matter of reaching the end of an act with 50 rings or more to get a giant ring to appear that you could jump through to play this game's special stages, which are third-person stages where Sonic has to find and destroy 6 purple UFOs before time runs out in order to claim a time stone. Destroying a UFO will usually give you rings or speed boosts, and there are floor panels that will either boost your speed, blow you in the air, or trip you up. Landing and running in water will quickly eat away at your time limit, causing your run to end prematurely if time runs out, though with 20 seconds remaining, a blue UFO will appear in the middle of the stage to grant you extra time should you be able to smash it. Smashing all the UFOs in a stage earns you a time stone, and collecting all 7 time stones ensures a good future in all zones going forward, thus not only ensuring the good ending, but also saving you the trouble of having to seek out all those generator gimmicks in the past. So let's be real here. The special stages in Sonic CD are bad. Really bad. Sonic tends to be difficult to control, and on top of that, these segments are often marred by a choppy frame rate and sluggish gameplay, which makes these things virtually intolerable. Now, I'm not saying these are impossible to play because I eventually did manage, somehow, to get all 7 time stones. But it would take Sega the better part of 2 decades to give players a version of Sonic CD that had these special stages running smooth as butter as they should, and now these are proper challenging as opposed to questioning your life choices as you run around these weird worlds with this jank frame rate. Actually, scratch that. It only took them a couple years because Sonic CD got a Windows port in '96 and the special stages run super smooth on that. And that's the version that would be used in Sonic Gems Collection on GameCube. A rare smart move on the part of Sega in that regard. Either way you approach things, whether it be nabbing the time stones, blowing future tech for good futures, or just blowing through levels without a care in the world, you're going through these 8 zones with 3 acts apiece, which ends with a boss fight that isn't always straightforward. There's always a gimmick to work around, this pinball layout for example, or this bubble-sucking contraption, all of it building towards the climatic confrontation with the Mad Doctor's latest creation, Metal Sonic, whom you must race down a perilous track of death and despair, all the while Dr. Robotnik and his insta-kill laser of killing is in hot pursuit. But through trial, error, and dogged persistence, you eventually beat your robotic doppelganger to the finish, and now you could save Amy, right? You can save Amy, right?
I'm out of here.
I guess not. Oh well. Sonic CD is more Sonic. So if you're just playing Sonic to blow through the levels, you don't care about the extra stuff, then you have that. Sometimes. Other times you have levels requiring you to do more platforming or overcome obstacles that slow you down. And then there's stuff like Wacky Workbench and its supercharged floors that launch you into the air every time you touch the damn things. A couple times it's a nice idea. More than that, it overstays its welcome. A lot of these levels feel thrown together without much thought or refinement, feeling more like little experiments rather than a cohesive series of obstacle courses that many of the better Sonic levels come across as. The time travel aspect is a neat idea on paper, and the execution isn't too bad, but I don't think they do enough with it. All that really happens is a change in graphics and color palette, a few objects are moved around here and there, and that's about it. Building up speed to initiate a time warp after passing a sign? Great, fantastic. Hope you have enough room to initiate the warp, because if not, you'll have to find another sign and try again. Sometimes you don't even want to initiate the warp, meaning you have to break your run at just the right moment. In any event, that sign you triggered is wasted and there's no going back. Here's the reality. When you're in the present, you only want to go to the past because that's where your main targets for a good future are vulnerable to attack. There's no reason whatsoever for you to visit the future in any way, shape, or form other than to see what it's like, and you're already getting that in Act 3 anyway, which always takes place in the future, good or bad. Besides, once you nab all 7 time stones, you're guaranteed good futures going forward, and thus the best ending, thus rendering the time travel aspect completely pointless from this point forward. Now, Sonic CD has a save function to keep track of your progress, only one save though. There's also a time attack mode where you can try and play through all the stages you cleared in the fastest time possible. The load times are somewhat tolerable to a degree, and there's hidden stuff with codes and stuff that you could check out and stuff. So, that's something, I guess. Visually speaking, Sonic CD looks to be on par with the first 2 games, with a slight edge in more vibrant colors and maybe sharper visuals in general. Certainly some of the terrain looks a bit cleaner, but that's about it really. I'd be hard-pressed to call this the best looking of the bunch because some of the zones you travel through are rather bland looking. Another Green Hill type setting, another tech-based type deal, another temple setting. The only real standout is Stardust Speedway with its brass instruments. I mean, some people will call this the best looking of the old games, but I don't know. The couple of video bits to play out in this small box, and again, the special stages suffer the most with its choppy frame rate and flaky depth perception. Points for effort if nothing else, but otherwise, eh. And then there's the sound output, which is an anomaly of sorts. Yeah, we'll get to the soundtrack in a little bit, but the actual sound effects have an uneven quality of sorts. Some sounds are nice and crisp, while others sound a bit muffled, for lack of a better term. You notice this the most whenever Sonic jumps. The sound isn't quite as crisp or clear as it is on Genesis. Here, have a quick listen. But yeah, obviously most people know about Sonic CD having 2 different soundtracks for different parts of the world. The deal is that Sonic CD had a much livelier, cheerful, and sometimes chaotic collection of tunes that were largely retained when Sonic CD was released in Europe. But when the game saw release in North America, these tracks were replaced with newly composed techno-sounding tunes that are either easy listens, moody, calmy, upbeat, chaotic, or whatever the case may be. Would have been fine, except when you go to the past, they still have the original themes from the Japan-Europe releases, which creates a bit of a conflict of tone because they sound nothing like the newer themes. I know they had new themes for the past stages prepped but never used them for some reason. Probably should have to maintain that consistency, but whatever. Now later remasters would let you choose between one or the other depending on your preference. But if I'm going to be honest, the only edge that the original tracks have over the American ones are the consistent zone themes between time periods, and that's only because both regions share the same past themes. Otherwise, both are the same in that there are some tracks that are really good, there are some tracks that are kinda meh, and then there's a small number of tracks that are kinda sorta shit. If another remaster is in Sonic CD's future, might I suggest allowing the player more flexibility to mix and match which tracks play in which zone. That way you can retain the best of both worlds while leaving out all the rubbish tracks. But for the record, Sonic Boom is better and I will not hear otherwise. Overall, Sonic CD is a game that a lot of people seem to like and used to praise as one of the greatest achievements in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise until the Sonic 3 and Knuckles Stitch Job came along. But I'm more along the lines of, meh. Maybe I should blame Sonic 2 for coloring my perceptions of how a 2D Sonic should play and feel because that game did such a superb job of it. But Sonic CD's biggest claim is that it has more stuff, adds a bit more lore, and its conflicting soundtracks. Beyond that, The special stages are kind of jank and a chore to play. Some of the levels didn't work for me, brother. The time travel mechanics, while ambitious, could have been better implemented. And gee, I don't know, give me a final boss that actually poses a worthy final challenge and not something I can play cheaply and dispose of quite easily. Oh, and also... yeah. Sonic CD doesn't quite live up to the hype, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad game. Some parts of the game I do like, I appreciate the ambition involved with the time travel, I even dug some of the boss fights that were actually quite inventive, and that duel with Metal Sonic is a thrill. It is a perfectly fine 2D Sonic outing that plays just about as well as the last one did, and maybe a little more. It's just not the be-all, end-all that people say it is, especially nowadays when other titles came along and surpassed what this has to offer. But with the later remasters making a few key changes and refinements, Sonic CD is a slightly better game than it used to be, and is more likely to be better appreciated than in its original Sega CD format, which I would not recommend to anyone. If you're going to play Sonic CD, play any other version but that. Even the Windows version that graces the Sonic Gems collection on GameCube is a better choice. As for me, I've played enough Sonic CD for a lifetime, and I'm more than happy to leave that game behind. Just about ready to leave a lot of things behind, quite frankly, but that's another story for another time. Good night.